So I'm Charles Hudson. I'm Vice President of Business Development with Serious Business and your host for the day. I usually don't get to moderate panels, but I'm really excited today to be able to help walk you through some of the key issues facing folks looking to monetize social games. We've got a great lineup here. I'm going to allow them each to introduce themselves, starting with Renata, working our way down to Erikka.
Hi, I'm Renata Gianello. I work in business development at PayPal. I'm sure most of you are familiar with PayPal. We are probably the easiest way to get started in terms of monetizing and accepting payment across 190 countries, and a leading payment method on sites like Zynga and Playfish. And we're really excited to be talking to you guys, particularly the developers in the audience, because we're opening up our platform later this year for developers to innovate on top of PayPal services and APIs. So if anyone is interested in learning more about that, you can go to x.com.
All right. I'm Rob Goldberg. I'm the CEO of GMG Entertainment. We are a leading physical publisher for digital gaming and entertainment partners. We publish prepaid cards at retail, working with some of the nation's leading retailers and some of the online world's leading game publishers and digital entertainment companies.
Hi, my name is Adam Caplan. I'm the president at Super Rewards, and Super Rewards is a virtual currency monetization platform that aggregates a whole variety of direct payment alternatives and also advertising offers, which we present to users of games in order to monetize them. Today we work with over 1,000 applications across the social media space, as well as iPhone, and as of a week ago, Twitter as well. And we work with many individual standalone websites as well.
Hello, my name is Erikka Arone, and I work at Zong. Zong is a leading mobile payments company, and we have coverage in most of the developed world in terms of first world GDP countries. Zong is unique in a number of ways when it comes to mobile payments, in that we provide what we consider a superior customer experience with customer support, and excited to hear all of your questions today.
All right, just to kick things off, since this is the second annual Social Gaming Summit, and you all are on the front lines of payments, what's changed in the last year about the ways that social game developers think about integrating payments into their applications in terms of when they think about it, what they worry about, things like that? And we'll start with you, Adam.
I think everyone's become a lot more sophisticated in the various opportunities and ways to monetize their users that are out there, and I think what we're seeing increasingly across the entire space is people testing out a whole variety of different payment methods and not sticking with just one method they may have used in the past. So almost every application and game is testing mobile payments, is testing other alternative payments, and is testing CPA offers. And depending on what age group and demographic and location of your users, any one of these different methods may be more work better or not. So people, as they are testing these things, are beginning to see increased CPAs and CPM rates that are coming out of it.
Anybody else want to add anything?
What we've noticed at Zong is that there's a lot of innovative thinking when it comes to how they would like to engage their users, so not just with gameplay, but the overall experience. And so a truly frictionless experience where someone can conduct the transaction quickly and get back into the mechanics or the social aspects of the game has become increasingly critical. I think there's a greater awareness that that payments in particular shouldn't necessarily be this bifurcated experience, and that that if you have only X number of minutes of engagement with a user, you want to use that engagement time wisely, not just for engagement and virality, but also for monetization. So it's been a really exciting evolution of users and of companies who are catering to these users, in that people are thinking more holistically, they're willing to experiment more, and I also think that in North America as well as in Europe, people are becoming more sophisticated with offers, but also with things like mobile payments.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think what we've seen is that some of the larger players are getting a lot more sophisticated in how they think about payments. People will compare payments and really do a lot of A/B testing and try to understand which converts better than others. And what we've found is that some players are integrating directly with PayPal as opposed to going through the aggregators. And also when it comes to fraud, people are getting quite smart and learning how to do their own modeling and their own understanding of patterns to try and mitigate some of that friendly fraud and as well as the less friendly fraud that you see on the social networks.
I think what we've seen on the prepaid card space is adding to the level of strategy and sophistication on a payment method process is a strategy of how am I going to monetize my existing users, my non-paying users, through whether it's different payment methods that they don't have the access to directly, but also the gift giving revenue is a primary focus for us through prepaid cards for our partners, which is how do you capture the money that's in mom and dad's wallet. And I think it's a focus for everyone up here as well, not just purely prepaid cards, but specifically capturing the billions of dollars in gift-giving revenue at holidays and birthdays and things like that. I think we've seen over the last year people getting the basic functionality up and running from a payment standpoint and now looking at how to be more strategic ongoing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We've got a product that we're currently testing, which is a student account product. So historically, PayPal has only allowed people 18 years old and older to have a PayPal account and use that for payment. But currently, we're testing a product that is for 13 to 17-year-olds. And the parents are the ones who set up that account and put the money in the student account. But then the student can then interact with that account and use that to buy things on the social networks and on games. And we found that it's very much this dynamic that Robert was just talking about. It's a lot of the time it's the parent that has to give the teen the money to be able to make the payments, and so having a seamless way for parents to enable the teen in a way that's very easy to control, where you're going to have less of the friendly fraud situation, either because it's a prepaid card and there is no chargebacks, or because it's a PayPal account and the money is coming out of a PayPal balance and not straight out of the credit card of the parent, is a really good way to get some incremental dollars in there, but also manage the interaction a lot better.
Right. Great. I mean, we spent a lot of the morning talking specifically about games that live on social networks, but all of you here are dealing with both on social network and off social network games. And are there any interesting differences or trends you've seen in the way that monetization works well on, let's say the Facebook, MySpace platform versus kind of the open web?
Please.
I think on our platform today, about 35% of our top 100 games are non-Facebook, MySpace games. And while a lot of the trends around the types of monetization methods are similar, it's really the game mechanics and the virality of those games, or the lack of ease of virality of those games relative to Facebook and MySpace and Twitter and other social platforms that we see. But people are still using PayPal and still using credit cards and still using all the same methods, but I don't see there being very big differences between how those are performing or the types of methods versus social games.
What we have noticed is that games that do not necessarily reside or are connected to a social graph are very concerned about user acquisition. And so from the Zong perspective, mobile payments, given that it's frictionless, often has a lower barrier for someone to try for purchasing and what have you. And so especially when you see the free-to-play type games that are hoping to engage users in a longer-term relationship, they view mobile payments as a way, almost as user acquisition in a sense. And so a lot of our discussions increasingly are around user acquisition, and not just from the conventional marketing standpoint, but from the how do you get someone to become a committed member by buying things repeatedly.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is very fascinating about the social networks is the proliferation of payment methods that you see. There are multiple providers of offers, multiple providers of mobile payments, and in the open web, I think there's already been a little bit more of a rationalization of payment methods, and that's the natural evolution, in my mind, of where things are likely to go in the social network. So I think it's interesting to see the more mature categories in the open web and where the payments have evolved there, that might give us a clue as to the direction that the social networks are likely to go in.
Switching gears a little bit, I mean, since you all are sitting sort of behind the scenes, watching all this activity, who's paying for things in social games today? Geo, demo, any insights you can give the audience without obviously violating the confidence of any of your publishers? Sort of, who's driving all this activity?
I mean, I think it depends on the game, clearly. You know, there are games that are targeted at, 22-year-old males, so the games in the Mafia Wars, Mob Wars, Mobsters, Clones genre is clearly targeted at one specific demographic and age group. We have the same game cloned in different languages around the world to target different locations. And then you have some other great games, a lot of Playfish's games skew, as Sebastian mentioned earlier, to more 50-50 demographic, male-female. So it really depends on the game. But everybody's playing, and all age groups are playing, and all age groups are monetizing.
Right. I mean, I think we see, from a sales standpoint, on a day-by-day basis, we see purchases on a Friday hitting sort of the harder core game player who's stocking up cards and currency for the weekend. And then we see a strong Saturday and Sunday purchasing habits for whether it's gift giving or kids in stores with their parents on the weekends. So we see it across. I mean, obviously it does depend upon the game, but I mean, you're actually seeing both end user purchases as well as gift giving. And I think the gift giving is starting to grow in size and scope.
I think originally a lot of people had hypothesized that mobile payments would be for a younger demographic, people who are unbanked and the like. And we've been quite surprised to see the data on our demographics being skewed pretty heavily over 18. 18 to 30 is kind of our sweet spot. It's considered to be a convenience and actually something that's fun. The payment process itself being relatively painless, I think, is considered to be fun. But other interesting trends in demographics is that people thought that the North American market really wouldn't be as sophisticated, especially with regards to mobile payments. And we've seen that our user base is very heavily North American. I
want to touch on fraud a little bit, and Renata's already mentioned sort of the difference between kind of the friendly fraud that probably doesn't get talked about as much as the sort of the four guys in a basement trying to figure out how to hack your system. How should publishers think about fraud and sort of the balance between friendly and unfriendly fraud, or just general fraud management strategies as they start rolling out payments?
So I think there's a lot that individual developers can do to help mitigate fraud. I think there are certain things that tend to attract fraudsters more than others. So, for example, a lot of the games have virtual currencies. It's really important to not to allow users to cash out or to make transfers between accounts very easy or even available at all, because that makes it much easier for people to move money through your system and makes you more vulnerable to those types of unfriendly fraud attacks. As far as friendly fraud is concerned, I think, again, having payment methods that are targeted at the teen segment, which is where a lot of the friendly fraud appears to happen, is the parent calling up the developer and saying, I didn't authorize my teen to make this payment, so something like PayPal student accounts or gift cards or mobile or offers, all of the different payment methods represented on this panel are really useful to have as options on your site, so that teen doesn't have to use mom and dad's credit card to make that payment. And then there's a bunch of other best practices that developers can do in terms of IP tracking, and typically what you should see is that one IP will access one account. If you see many different IPs accessing one account, or one IP accessing a lot of different accounts, those are the types of activities you should look out for. Also, drastic changes in behavior by particular players or by new players. So it seems to be that people who've been in the space for a little while now are applying some of these types of filters and learning and successfully mitigating some of the fraud issues.
Echoing Renata's points, we see 100 times more fraud in games where there is some form of player-to-player trading allowed or cashing out of some format. And while ostensibly people might consider those elements of a game to be attractive to the users, we haven't seen a corresponding increase in the monetization of those games. So you're really involving a lot more risk potentially without a lot of significant benefit when you allow those. Now, some games, of course, by their very nature, whether it's a poker or something else, you need to have player-to-player, and you just need to be able to deal with the users and tracking them. I would say that the game companies themselves are becoming much more sophisticated in monitoring their users and in essence encouraging high quality users and discouraging low quality users, and that's the leaders in the space that here today do that all day long. And also there are standalone companies like an Iovation or a Threat Metrics that are making business models in monitoring this for you, so you can outsource a lot of this if you need to.
Prepaid cards, by their nature, don't have fraud attached to them, which is nice. If there is false credit cards, the retailer pays for it, so that's a benefit. I think one of the things that we've seen and worked with our partners on is communicating the digital gaming companies and entertainment companies communicating with their consumers directly in sort of helping them. One of the habits we see is controlled spending. So mom and dad don't want to give out their credit card for fear of friendly fraud and different things. But a $10 purchase a week for allowance money on whatever child's favorite game or the young adult's favorite game is a great way to control spending and limit some of the friendly fraud.
There are two things with regards to both fraud and I guess controlling spending. A lot of folks who want to commit fraud really find that the most efficient way to do so, in our experience and anecdotally, is through credit cards. I mean, credit cards are much easier to commit fraud on for someone who wants to really take someone through the ringer than all the different payment methods that we have here today. And in particular, I'd say certain payment methods have built-in experiences where fraud is much less likely, like the truly malicious third party, someone stole my phone and is now trying to buy $100 of something without my knowledge. That said, with regards to friendly fraud, I think that many payment methods have built-in mechanisms now that look at velocity of payments from a new user, for example, which is something that we look at. Mobile payments have monthly caps, which is also quite helpful, we find. I think that when anyone wants to actually go through the process of implementing a payment solution, which I've actually had the fortune and the misfortune to be on the other side of and be someone trying to pick a mobile payments provider, just making sure that you take the time up front to figure out your tracking and to really get all of your team on board in terms of investing time after the implementation to analyze what revenue is true revenue versus revenue that's going to have to be refunded or charged back 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks later.
And just ballpark from your experiences, sort of what's, I hate to use the word acceptable, but sort of what's a decent expectation for someone in a social games context to think about fraud?
I mean, I don't know if everyone wants to answer that hot button question, but I mean, when we've heard some folks have very, very low fraud rates. I mean, under 1%, and that exists. But I'd say when we quote, a refund rate or a fraud rate of under 1.5%, people are quite pleased. We've routinely run into people who have 5% plus.
I think we look at fraud in two ways. One is the direct payments from users. Clearly, that's what we really think about fraud, and it's well less than 1% for us as a whole. Lead quality is another different thing. We have a lot of people, given the number of free registrations or surveys or other advertising offers on our platform, that will attempt to game those through, Fred Flintstone at 123 Bedrock Drive, and we see that all day long. And while it's not fraud, it's poor quality leads that we potentially give to advertisers, and that's something we track daily, and to the extent we see users who are abusing the system, we might stop showing them advertising offers and only show them direct payment alternatives, and they very quickly come back and ask to be switched back on if we can.
So something that's interesting to note is with a lot of games, the marginal cost of your goods is very low. Your cost of goods sold is almost zero, and so some people feel like fraud isn't such a bad problem. But something that is really important for you to keep in mind is that credit card companies at around 0.5%, 1% fraud rates, chargeback rates, will really start to take notice, and you might even end up with your account shut down if your chargeback rate gets very high. So it's really important to manage that really carefully, and so I say anything above 0.5% or 1% is a cause for concern, and we have a lot of best practices actually that if anyone is interested, that can really help you stay under that level.
So in our social network platforms panel before lunch, a number of those folks either intimated or hinted or have actually launched payment platforms for their own services, with High Five and everybody. What does that mean for your respective businesses in the medium term?
Okay.
Brave soul.
I think it's additive to the system. I'd think that as soon as you make it easier for a consumer to pay on the particular platform through, a trusted brand, whether it be Facebook or MySpace or someone else, I think it's a benefit to the developers. So we think it's really, not competitive, it's additive to the entire system, and we're looking forward to all of the platforms. High Five has their own as well, and, monetizing through that way as well.
I think in our space, there are some partners that have done very well being focused towards their core users, monetizing their business through prepaid cards. And then I think there are other partners, especially as the space at retail becomes much more competitive, that they will be a benefit by being able to partner with bigger payment systems and backends and taking other people's currency and getting access to the retail space. Obviously, the brand building and the specific gift giving is eliminated if you don't have your own branded card, but I think I agree with Adam, it's additive, and I think that the greater sort of broader consumer awareness there is across all of both online and offline, the better it is for the entire category.
We're really excited about just the overall improvement in user experience, because we think that if there's a clear experience for payments, then there'll be more engagement and more money for all of us, and more fun for the end user. So we're really excited by it. Ideally, we'd like everyone to collaborate, but like Mark Pincus said earlier, if anyone out there is looking for, something to do in the evenings, Charles? Collaboration would be fantastic. We're not sure. Some people have a lot of problems with the iTunes model, right? But without that frictionless payment experience after the initial pain of entering your credit card information in an iTunes account, then we wouldn't have seen the innovation proliferation and the economy, the iPhone app economy that we see today. So we're really excited that other people are getting on the payments platform bandwagon, and we highly encourage anyone who hasn't done that to really consider it and consider all of us.
And this one's, I guess I'll start with Rob and Adam on this one. And we'll expand it for the whole panel. Sort of what are ballpark some good estimates if you're building a free-to-play game target-wise for the chunk of users you think you can ultimately get to pay? And in what ways do you see clever developers using payment methods or payment systems to get people on board more quickly to get over that kind of penny problem?
You want to go?
So I think there are two questions embedded there. One, on the proportion of your players that are ultimately going to make you money, it's on any one day it might be 5%. So it's a small number, but you need everyone through the entire ecosystem in order to create a great game environment that people actually want to play and monetize. This model is always going to be one, the freemium model that most of the social games have, is one that monetizes a whole spectrum of users. There are some users who you're going to show CPM-based banner ads, and it's the only way you're going to monetize those users. There's a subset that maybe is going to pay you 50 cents every few months, and then you have this very engaged, hardcore set of users. We went back over the past 6 months and looked at the highest monetizing individual on the Super Rewards platform, and we found one individual who spent $30,000 across 2 games in 6 months. You need to have a model that can capture those outliers, and no one can tell me in this room a pay-to-play or a monthly subscription model that can capture $30,000 of value from one individual. And so, we're thinking of ways to try and find this guy and take him on a holiday somewhere. But in any case, so the second question, which I've just forgotten, was
just what are clever ways that developers are using to get people over initial purchase?
Correct. So it's my cool point of the company. I think the way we think about it is how do you get users through the funnel to begin with? And for all of the interesting methods of direct payment, which are growing more quickly, by the way, than the advertising piece of our business, you need for a new game an ability for a user to come and try the new game for free without paying a cent. You want them to become engaged with your product, and then over time you'll see the most engaged users transition more towards paying you directly for use of that game. So simple free surveys or sign-ups, email submits, that kind of stuff, which may only earn you $1 or $2 per time, is a fantastic way for users to try your product before they buy it. And so part of what Super Rewards does is targeting these really simple free offers to your consumers based on what we know about them in order to get them engaged with your product to begin with.
From our standpoint, I mean, we see percentage of paid players versus unpaid players, and I think that what the prepaid card really offers is the ability to capture, as I said, that gift giving revenue, and not gift giving purely on a Christmas where you are. I mean, it's grandma's going to buy something at Target or Walmart or Best Buy for their 22-year-old son or their grandson or their granddaughter. So it could be a sweater, it could be a DVD, or if it's positioned right and marketed correctly, both through the end user who can then communicate it to their loved ones, there's the ability to capture that revenue that would go into a completely other product category business and/or business. I think the other part of it is how you communicate directly to your consumers who may or may not want to ever spend any of their own money, but again, sort of capturing that. The disposable income that teens and young adults, I mean, there's plenty of business plans and PowerPoint slides that sort of denote the billions of dollars that available for disposable income for teens and young adults. Of course, if they actually had it in their own pockets, beer sales would be a lot higher. But because they don't actually have it in their own wallets, it's unlocking that from parents. So that's what we see, as I said, sort of Saturday sales going. We see summer sales spike because kids are out of school and they're spending more time with their parents at shopping during shopping trips and things like that. So it's one of the things that we've seen pre-holiday is we actually have some of our partners who have very successfully, from October 1st through November 15th, we've created a printable PDF saying, print this out, give this to your parents, tell them this is exactly what you want. On the bottom is the list of retailers that states where it's available. So literally using your own non-paying consumers to drive incremental revenue, not directly from their wallets. So.
Erikka, anything you want to add?
I was just fearful for my own pocketbook when he just said that.
That's right.
It's brilliant marketing.
It works.
Yeah, I think one other thing that seems to be working well is lowering the barriers to entry. So even if you are selling bundles of virtual currency or poker chips or whatever it is, having a bundle size, at least at the first time someone is going to transact, that's low enough for them to, not to feel the pinch too much. And then you can raise that over time for that individual user as you can see that they're getting more engaged with the game.
Actually, I've seen a couple of really interesting strategies in terms of getting people engaged to purchase something and be really devoted to a game. And conventional knowledge would be that you try to shorten that period between when they're playing for free to when they're paying for something. We've actually run into one large game company that doesn't allow their users to buy anything for the first week after they've registered, just so that they will really invest themselves in the game, and then when they are ready to purchase something, it's kind of within this very personalized experience that they've set up for themselves. We've also seen other interesting product strategies where people will interweave the purchasing experience. So you could have just joined, for example, a paintball team, and you could be busy splatting away at whoever it is you're trying to splat, and you might realize that in order to compete with someone, a very bad adversary, such as someone named Bugatti Baller, for example, you're going to have to buy an extra big gun, or maybe there's some secret tunnel where you could buy a blacklisted, what are those things? Bulletproof vests or something like that, and then they go right back into the game. And so it's really brilliant because it's not this bifurcated, okay, I'm playing, now I'm buying. It's I play a little bit, oh my god, I need help, go buy something, get back into the game, ran out of that, go buy some more. And so we found that to be quite interesting.
I guess last question before we turn it over to the audience. I mean, there's at least sort of 2 great mobile payment solutions, at least 3 or 4 great offer solutions, a few prepaid card folks, and PayPal. What does this all look like for social game developers in 12 months?
Adam?
Yeah. Look, I think there's clearly going to be some consolidation in the space, broadly defined, and it's a big chessboard, and who people partner with or ultimately end up, merging with is still unclear, with the platforms themselves offering their own payment methods is always going to be, I don't think you're ever going to get down to just 2 or 3 players. This is going to be an industry where there are a variety of players, but clearly the model is going towards holistic solutions for payments and monetization, and that's going to involve all of the different categories that are on this panel and some that aren't on the panel.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned before, I think it's, if you look outside of the social networks and on websites, there have been many different payment methods, many different types of virtual currencies, and in the end, there have been very few that have remained and that are very prevalent across the internet and across the world, and I think we'll see a similar evolution here.
We think that it's a massively growing market, and I won't even hazard a guess anymore at the numbers if you were to include China, but I'm not going there. But everyone's throwing out numbers now. But if you weren't in the earlier panel, you won't understand anything that just happened. But if you execute well, we think that there's plenty of room for there to be lots of coexisting options. I mean, Visa, MasterCard, American Express. That said, we have seen some consolidation, and that's in part due to difficulties executing, mistiming markets, or what have you. And so we're constantly looking for opportunities, obviously, to partner or to consolidate. But we think that it's a high likelihood that there'll be multiple players, and we're excited about that.
Great. If we've got any questions from the audience, we've got time for a couple. Maybe not.
It's a good sign or a bad sign.
Yeah. Oh, we've got one here in the front.
I'm wondering about RMTs. Are you concerned about, I realize that you guys deal with real currency. as opposed to virtual currency, but any comments on the rise of RMTs and how that might play into your friendly fraud or real fraud scenarios?
Yeah, RMT, real money transactions.
Still don't understand the question.
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry. Can you rephrase the question?
You might want to try that one again.
And,
Give us a hint.
And if there's anyone in particular you wanted to answer the question.
So in communities like Second Life, there's these third-party markets that you can trade in your goods for real money trade. And there's a lot of fraud. It creates gold farming in some of these games that are open worlds and so forth. So I'm just wondering if this plays into anything that you guys do.
So in general, I think that's a very challenging practice. As a developer, if you choose to allow those types of transactions, you are inviting a lot of fraud into your system. And so in general, if someone were to consult with PayPal beforehand, we would probably advise them to think about whether they can achieve the same objectives for conversion and monetization without some of those practices. But we have a lot of people, thousands of people working on fraud monitoring, and so we partner with companies like Linden Labs, and we do work with players that have that type of business. And so we've learned to deal with that type of challenge, but it is a challenge, and I think anyone considering that type of business model should really do their homework before they do that.
You had mentioned your best practices. Where can we find that? Is that available online?
It is going to be available soon, but it's available. It's not available on a website yet, but it is available for public consumption. So feel free to email me, and I'm rdionello@paypal.com. So anyone else interested in the best practices, I'd be happy to email it to you guys.
I think we've got one more over here.
If you look at the space, whether it be in the payment category or the offer network category, where do you guys see it competition-wise? And in the next 12 months, what kind of new competition do you guys foresee?
Was that specific to the offers side or just in general?
I think with the costs of startups nowadays, I mean, this is a business that clearly has very big legs to it. It's in its nascency, and so absolutely there are going to be new entrants that cover each and every one, and aggregated payments and offers as well. I do think that there are some clear competitive advantages for those who've been doing it for a longer period of time, mostly on the targeting and analytics around users, but also within this space as it relates to understanding game mechanics and almost the advisory services that go along with our payment business on working with clients to better integrate them, to add new features or products that we think are going to monetize well. So while I think a lot of people are going to try, you'll probably see the incumbents continue to get stronger, and the only real competition, if you call it competition, is going to come from the platforms themselves and what portion of the overall payment model is encompassed by their own payment technologies.
Well, great. On that note, I'd like to thank our panelists for their participation. You guys did a great job. Let's give them a round of applause. Sorry.